Good evening. I would like to call the May 14th, 2018 Bellbrook City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Greenwood?
Here.
Mr. McGill?
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Here.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson is absent. Deputy Mayor Schweller?
Here.
Mayor Baird?
Here. May I have a motion to excuse Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
And
Motion by Mrs. Middlestetter to excuse Mrs. Seeger Lawson, seconded by Mr. McGill. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mayor Baird?
yes. Formal approval of the City Council regular meeting minutes of April 23rd, 2018. Does any member on council have corrections or additions to the City Council meeting minutes of our last meeting? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as written. Mayor's announcements and special guests. We have one special guest along with some other special guests. I would like to introduce our police chief, Chief Doug Daugherty. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. We come before you tonight to celebrate our annual awards. And today marks the first day of Police Week, so it's an appropriate time of the year to do it. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to call up the people that completed the annual fitness challenge. So if I could have Sergeant Salyers, Officer Mark Burns, Officer Josh Warren, Officer Jamie Johnson, Officer Alexi Wilson, so this year's fitness challenge was, every year they're designed by me, and I go out and run it, and I kind of set a time for it. So this year's challenge was 20 jumping jacks, 5 burpees, 200-yard run, and then about a 500 or 600 yard bike course. So you had to complete that in under 7 minutes.
Oh.
And it's voluntary, so people just come and do it and try to compete. And so we have these people here before you today. So the interesting part of this year, last year, as you may recall, Mark Burns was the quickest and the fastest. Well, he's been supplanted by Alexi Wilson this year, so it was she had the best time of anybody. And so previous 4 have a fitness ribbon, but I want to give Alexi her fitness ribbon this year. Okay. I could just have Sergeant Salyers, I'm sorry, if I could just have Josh and Mark stay. Everybody else can sit, please. Okay, so we had an incident that occurred February 21st at almost 11 o'clock at night. And I'll read briefly I'll read the incident. On Wednesday, February 21st this year at 22:06 hours, units responded to 2072 Lakeman Drive to an adult male that was not breathing. As officers arrived, they found an adult male that was not breathing. Officer Mark Burns and Officer Josh Warren entered the residence and found the caller providing CPR to her husband. And she told officers that he was not breathing. After entering the residence, officers began CPR. Officer Burns went out and got the AED unit from the patrol car, while Josh Warren continued CPR on the gentleman. They did some life-saving efforts there. They did not have to use the AED after all, but they did keep him alive long enough to have the medics get there and remove him, and he survived the event. So the interesting thing to this is that just this night, the previous evening, we were all having training on CPR. We had that, and it should be, it's not forgotten on us that council allowed us to have the AED units in our cars, so it was right there for us if we needed them. So I just want to thank these officers for their work. What they've done is they've earned a meritorious ribbon to wear on their uniforms. It's marked by light blue, life-saving effort. And with that, I have just a citation to hand them too. So I'll present that to them, and thank you. So that's all we have, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your support and the things that you give us and provide us, the training, the equipment. It paid off, and this has paid off forever for that family. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief, and I would like to thank all the officers who came this evening. It's great to have such a good group of people working and helping protect the city of Bellbrook. I don't know if anyone else on council has anything they'd like to add.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys do a great job, and having the ceremony, we really appreciate that, to get to observe and hear your stories, and you're well-deserved of these accomplishments. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good job, gentlemen and lady. And by the way, Chief, we still got extra time. Tonight's agenda's not overcrowded. If you wanted to talk for another half hour or so, we'd be fine with that.
You know, I cut down my speech quite a bit.
Or maybe you could demonstrate the jumping jacks and.
Well, I will say this, that with the new leadership here, city manager did say that she was going to try the fitness challenge, so we'll look forward to that in the coming weeks or months when we get that done, and I'll report back.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. That is all we have tonight for mayor's announcements and special guests. We have no public hearings, no introduction of ordinances, no resolutions, but we do have a city manager's report.
Yes, we do. So, as everybody's aware, the fire levy is passed. I have begun work along with the chief in order to figure out how we move forward. So we're going to be working to fill the new full-time position and make the changes in the schedule for the part-timers now, so that we will have the benefits of that levy ahead of them receiving the money in 2019. So there was room in the budget because we did have a vacancy earlier this year from a captain's position, so that will enable us to be able to move forward and make those changes now instead of waiting. So we've already begun work on that, so we want to thank all the voters that went out and cast their vote this year for that levy. And Little Sugar Creek, it's continuing to be monitored by the service department. It is on the list to be repaved. And our service director has been in touch with Jurgensen's, which is the company that's doing the paving. They're set to be in the city in August, but he stressed the situation to them, so he's working with them to try to get at least that part of it completed early. So he was supposed to touch base with them again this week. Upper Hillside Water Main, contractors have been off-site for the last 2 weeks, and they were finishing another job. They were supposed to be back today, and they will now be back on Wednesday. So we are very anxious to get that work completed and those residences hooked up. So Dale has been in contact with the contractor on that. Comprehensive plan, the community survey that we had is closed now. We got about 120 responses, which wasn't bad. There was a big push at the Sugar Maple Festival. I went out and talked to business owners to try to drum up some interest, and it's paid off. We quadrupled the responses. When we started, I think that we only had like 30, so 120 is pretty good considering where we were just 2 weeks ago. So Greene County Regional Planning is the one that was working on that survey, and they are working on the update to the comprehensive plan. They plan on gathering all of the information from the survey and bringing it to our planning board within the next few weeks. So I know that personally I am really anxious to see this move forward because I think that we can get a lot of really good information from this. coupled with the walkability study that happened a year ago, that was some good momentum, and I don't want to see that get lost. So I'm really anxious and excited to see this move forward. And the last thing that I have is a review of the summer meeting schedule. I know that that is something that the council takes a look at early on, and the only thing that I had on my schedule is I had a pre-scheduled vacation for the week of August 13th, so that was the only conflict that I had, so.
And I probably need to look at mine, and then I guess we can just email Jamie if we have what dates aren't any, don't work out for us. We will not have a council meeting, another council meeting in May because it's Memorial Day. So we'll figure out the rest of it, so.
Yep. That's it for me.
Any questions for our city manager this evening?
The only question I have is Little Sugar Creek. Have you started thinking about what we're gonna do down the road as far as permanent fix? Maybe trying to drum up some money or try to plan this thing? Maybe engineers, see what they say we need, anything like that? I mean, you may not know now, I'm just wondering if you're thinking about that kind of thing, or?
It's definitely something that I have spoken with the service director about. My first week, one of the things that we did was he took me around, I mean, it was a full morning to all the different facilities, and, you know, Little Sugar Creek was part of that, where he took me up and he kind of talked about some things and talked about a number of the different options that had been presented and how costly most of them are. And so that conversation has begun. As far as I know, based on his assessment, he feels as if it's okay for now. They walk it twice a week to monitor it for any changes. Once the paving occurs, they're going to continue to monitor it, but a long-term solution is definitely something that we're going to have to try to work towards.
Yes.
So I know that I've heard a lot of big numbers assigned to that in the possible options, so that's definitely going to be something that we'll have to get looking more into.
And I'd sent you that clip out of that Xenia Gazette. Is that something that, did you read it?
The Department of Development, I
Yes.
think, the funding
Yes.
workshop, I think that's this Wednesday or Thursday, and I am going to be attending.
Okay.
So, yes.
And it'll probably be Ohio Public Works funds when it happens.
Yeah.
And depending on how big it is and part of that, and/or Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. So, because the fix would, depending on how you fix it, at least the engineers that have looked at other similar issues on Little Sugar Creek, it can be obviously a pretty big expense.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed parts of Sugar Creek's not in that good a shape. I mean, they've got issues too. So I don't know, maybe we need to work together or something with them. And during this planning, maybe the same guy fixes both places. I don't know.
Well, the issue you got to remember with Sugar Creek, most of the roads in Sugar Creek are county roads. They're not the township's roads. And I'm not 100% sure about Little Sugar Creek. I'm not sure. I think it's county, but I'm not sure. Feedwater's county. Now, the roads in the plats are actually township roads, and the county has a book that you can get to look
Yeah.
to see. So most of the roads in the township, mileage-wise, are actually county roads. So that's where we would have to work with Bobby Geyer and his group.
Right.
Either way, and or the township, so that's a good idea.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Melissa, how's the audit going on with the state of Ohio? Are they on site still? I presume they're gone by now, and we pray for nothing, so we're in that never land that lasts for 2 to 3 months?
I think so. I have not been in contact with them since I've started. I was told that they would likely be back a week or so after I started, and so I had not heard.
Okay.
And I know that Mark got the last calculation for the financial statements, and so he will be submitting those very soon. And so once those are submitted, then I assume that they'll be back shortly. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for our city manager? Seeing none, committee report, service.
I think it's,
Huh? Oh, yeah. I was looking at Forrest. I saw him getting ready to go. Okay, Forrest, let's try you
Sometimes I
this
do.
time. How about safety, Forrest?
The only thing I'd like to mention is Safety Committee would like to schedule a meeting to just go over some things for the festivals, just to make, it's grown a lot, and we'd just like to touch base and go over some issues and just make sure that everything is what it should be, and, you know, take recommendations from your staff, and then we have some ideas with the safety committee, and maybe a workshop, whatever you'd like to plan. We'd just like to brainstorm a little bit, because like Sugar Maple Festival has grown a lot, and I think it's going to continue to grow. So we'd just like to make sure we're in good shape.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I know we were talking earlier that potentially having them come in and give a wrap-up, and that may be a
Yeah.
good time to, because we'll want to, of course, have the service director and the police chief involved.
Right,
and probably
exactly.
the fire, to know what things can be improved upon and all those kinds of things, what issues we had or didn't have.
Right.
So,
And
That's just
and
one.
it's just, I think something we ought to do, and just, we got time, so
Anything else?
that's all I got.
Finance and audit,
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
community affairs.
Nothing more than,
All
I
right.
had the same concern with, there's a couple of issues with Sugar Maple that need to be addressed.
Okay.
So,
Yep, so I think that's a general consensus, so. Old business, does anyone have any old business this evening? New business. Open discussion.
I don't think I have anything tonight.
I'd just like to thank the voters for passing the levy.
Amen.
That's kind of like
I don't think anything
a
was-
relief. Fire department, they do a great job. They do need the extra money, and they are a bargain, in my opinion, for the services that they do, and they will make very good use of that extra money. And as we can see tonight with the safety issues, with people having medical issues, this will really help out. Thank the voters very much. That's all I got.
I would concur with what Mr. Greenwood said, thanking the voters. You cannot believe what a godsend that was when we found out that we did pass the levy in that. So, thank you very much for your voting.
And I add my thanks. It definitely is going to make the work much easier.
It was a nice win for us, and we'll continue to spend the money like it's our own and not spend anything that's unnecessary. So we've been keeping it, the budget relatively tight, and I think this just will allow us to do the same and provide a little bit better service and work on our full-time staffing and so forth. And the other thing is, too, it's kind of interesting, I think that levy passed in all precincts in the city. So that was kind of a nice
That
thing.
is good.
Good support.
And the world of firefighters and EMTs have changed. If you talk to any city, which I talk to other mayors, other city managers, the days of volunteers are now pretty much gone, and part-timers are very hard to get. And we staffed with full-timer and part-timers in combination, and this will give better service to the city residents. And I think one of those things, when you look at the response time of just over 5 minutes, it's a very good service, and most of it's, the EMTs, and then on the rare fire that we do have, of course, all the areas will respond in mutual aid. So I would like to thank all the voters also. It definitely helps out, and hopefully we'll slowly crawl back from all the state and local government fund cuts that we've talked about over and over again.
Yeah.
That is all I have. This is open discussion for anyone who would like to come up. You need to say your name, and you have 5 minutes, Louis, and address.
I'm Louis Schatzberg. I live at 4082 Ridgetop Drive. Sugar Maple Festival, I think, was a great hit again. The weather on Friday was really good. Saturday was a little cloudy, but we still got a bunch of people down. Sunday was great. The shuttles were used a lot. A lot of people are finding those and using those as a good way to get downtown for the festival, of course. I only put up one directional sign downtown, and that's at the Shell station, because I have no choice there. But all the other ones, I direct them up to Bell Creek Intermediate, so that they can either park and walk down, or some people will walk down and then they'll ride the shuttle back. Some people ride the shuttle down and walk back. Because I've seen people go in both directions. That bicycle path that weekend gets a lot of good use out of it. And so that was good. My neighbor had a birthday party for his daughter, and he got in contact with the fire department. And when a couple of the officers came out, brought the medic out, taught these little 5-year-olds all about the medic and everything. The two people from the fire department gave an excellent presentation, went through everything on the medic for the kids, and they told them why. And they even had a card they pulled out, had a girl stand up, and they looked at her and said, okay, we could give you X amount of medicine and this and that based on the card and the quick reference. So I thought that was really good. I've never really looked at the medic in that aspect of it before, but they really gave a great presentation to the kids in a non-threatening and non-violent or non-emergency type of situation, so that we're there, the kids would feel more comfortable when they would get in a situation knowing that paramedics can take care of them. And the amazing stuff is, all the stuff that they have on that paramedic is just, I scratch my head and go, wow. It just amazes me, and they know where it all is. And at the same time, later on in the day, they had the police department come by, and the officer gave them a good look at the cruiser and everything. And I never looked at these new SUVs and everything, so it was educational for me as well, to see how well our city dollars are being spent for the equipment that we need to keep our city safe. And then there was so that was good. The unfortunate one was, I guess a few weeks ago, there was a Nerf gun war fight going on. In this day and age, we have to be very, very careful when we start talking with weapons of any kind anymore. Because, we look at what happened in Beaver Creek at the Walmart over there. You can't tell anymore a play gun from a real gun because they're so much look-alike. My wife, the dog was barking, so my wife let the dog out. The dog was going crazy. So she looks out, over in the next door neighbor's yard, there was a guy standing by a tree, and he's looking suspicious. He's going like this, looking all around. There was another car in the driveway that she didn't recognize it at all. So she called, then they backed out, and then they went forward, and the guy jumped back out of the car, and he went over to the neighbor's house, pointing. It looked like she had a gun. So my wife called 911 because she thought there was something going on that was really bad. Come to find out, it was a Nerf gun fight. At one time, that would be okay, but I think we need to be very, very, very careful in this day and age when we look at things like this. They need to look at the perspective. If it's at the school, or I don't think the school was really involved in it, I think it was just kids at school that were involved in it. But even at that, we have to be careful with what we do with weapons in this day and age. So, I think she did the right thing. In the long run, it might have ruffled some feathers along the way, but at the same time, we have to be proactive and look at the surroundings and see what's going on. And when we see something suspicious, then we need to call the police about it. And that's what I tell my neighbors. I said, I don't want to know all your business, or any of your business really. I just want to know if something suspicious is going on so that we know how to react to it as a neighborhood watch program. So anyway, sorry about that, but anyway, thank you and have a good day.
All right, thank you, Louis.
I'd just like to add a little bit what Louis was talking about. I work with some fellows that live in Centerville, and I guess that's happened there. And
Waynesville is a big area.
yeah, so this is, I don't know if it's a new phenomenon or
What,
something.
Nerf guns?
Nerf gun
Oh,
fights.
no, those have been
been around.
Yeah.
But
Grandson's
like
doing
Louis
all
said,
that.
this day and age,
And
it
paintball.
can be dangerous.
Anyone else like to come up this evening? Gentlemen? DP&L? Thanks for coming this evening. Does any other member on council have any other business to come before us this evening?
None, Mayor.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.